Hey, all, welcome back to the Defiant Spirit podcast. Baruch be here with my good friend and, frankly, longtime um, blogging video partner, Scott Shafman. Hey, Scott.
Hi, Baruch. How are you?
Welcome back. It's been a minute since we've done one of these.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
I'm excited to have a conversation again.
So, anybody who hasn't heard at least maybe three podcasts that Scott and I have done, Scott and I go way back, like 30 plus years back to college. Been friends ever since, though a few of those years we sort of drifted and walked our separate paths. But about, I don't know, 4 years ago or so, we were reunited. Unfortunately, not unfortunately to be reunited, but the circumstances around our good friend Mark Ehrman, who had died. And it was at that time when we rekindled our relationship. I would say even more than rekindled it, because I know that what became on this side of that tragedy has been infinitely more profound for both of us individually and as friends than certainly ever was 30 years ago.
Yeah, I think it's pretty amazing that we were able to, meet up again at a point in time in our lives where um, we both really, I feel like we needed each other. And it's just kind of evolved into something very special over the last 4 years.
It has. I've had the honor of spending a lot of time with Scott, both as a friend, excuse me, and as a client. Um, Working with Scott on his inner growth work, on his life's path of meaning, purpose, and resilience. And so much so, it's been so influential to me that I've really pivoted in some ways my life around Scott's journey, which we'll talk to you about. Because what I have seen in you, Scott, I'll just talk to you, not to the audience, is what I've seen in you is an example of what is possible. I work with men and women, but it's been more and more men. And it's been more and more of men that were where you were, or at least starting where you were, and now aspiring to where you currently are, where you have, I want to say arrived because that sounds too permanent, but certainly where you find yourself today on your journey of meaning and purpose and resilience. So I'd love to explore the origins of that journey, because it's really, and to the point where it's impacted me, and I shared this with you off air, but to the point where I'm writing a book right now for men, and there's three key figures in it, and you're one of those key figures. You're going to be famous.
I love that, and I'm so honored and humbled. And I I you know I think the journey that I've been on over the last 4 years, with you along my side, has just been this awakening time in my life where I feel um, everything that I do or say, I try to come from a place of where my core values are, and I'm not 100% like, I make mistakes. Um, and as a matter of fact, there was something happened the other day with Amy and I. Amy is my wife, and is it okay if I dive into this example?
Go for it.
So I've learned a lot about the difference between reacting and responding, and I know Dr. Frankel talks about this as well, and he's got a famous saying around this, and you can state that, I'm sure, verbatim. But basically, really, what it comes down to is this space between reacting and responding. And there was a moment the other night where Amy and I were talking, and I was delegated the task of um, making sure Gabriella's all the paperwork was filled in for her financial aid for her college. Okay, she's going to college next year. Well, the system is so incredibly backed up, and I've been on the website, and I know that Amy is trying to come from a place of not telling me what to do because she knows that I don't like to be told what to do. So But there was a moment the other night where I felt like she was kind of telling me what to do. And it was like, I reacted, and 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 I don't remember exactly what I said, because I think when we react, it's almost like an out of body experience. We had dialogue afterwards, and I'm like, Amy, I honestly don't even recall exactly what I said. So can you? So we talked through this, and really the root of the problem was earlier in our marriage. I had a tendency to, again, react and not respond, and we had a hard time communicating. We didn't. She had to be very careful about addressing certain topics with me, because evidently in the past I have reacted and disrespected her with my tone and the words that I chose to use unconsciously, and it triggered her because this happened the other day.
Hmm.
So we had dialogue about the, and I tried really to understand what it was that triggered me to react. And it was just interesting to be able to, I know we're going to be talking about looking in the mirror and really trying to own your shit, right? And I tried really hard, and I apologized, and I was very I tried to come from a place when she was telling me how she felt. I tried to really listen and understand how she was feeling versus how I was feeling.
Hmm.
And I think that was the shift, because I was coming from a place of responding and not reacting. And that's, in my mind, that's the growth.
And that's a very succinct way of summing up your 4 years of this shift or this journey from reaction, which, as you're describing, is it's unconscious, it's autopilot. More often than not, it's just fear because we're surviving. It's survival mode, right? And most guys, most people, but most guys, they operate in this fight or flight, this survival mode. In business, and like nothing's really changed, because 50,000 years ago it was just hunting, but now it's just hunting in a more civilized way usually. And then you take that hunt home and you're in that same hunter's mode, you're in that survival mode, you're in that reaction mode. And what I've seen you do is soften, become more contemplative, become more conscious, which I know is a word you really use a lot and like a lot, and becoming more conscious or aware. That's response, right? And you can't have, it's one of these things in life that's binary. Either you're in reaction or you're in response. Either you're asleep or you're awake. Either you're in fear or you're in love, whatever you want to call it. And I've seen you make this journey, and it's not like it's a snap of a fingers. It's been a progression, right? From complete sleep to
Mm.
on your way to being complete awake. None of us are there. I don't think we get there in this lifetime, but we're, like you said, we're expanding the space between that reaction and response.
Yeah, correct. And I mean, it it's all, it really, it is this journey that I'm on, and it's not like this life shattering moment that I had that, oh my god, this, I've completely become enlightened. That's not the case by any means. I think I've just started to incorporate in my life how to be true to myself, true my authentic self, the best version of myself, in coming from a place of being able to respond versus react. And it takes a lot of practice, it takes a lot of consciousness, it takes a lot of awareness, it takes a lot of using your ears, right, and really listening and paying attention.
I think it's such an important point to all the guys listening, especially. I don't trust epiphanies, right? Now, I'm not saying they don't happen, and I'm not saying they're not important, but they're not ultimately real if they're not sustained over time. I trust things in my life that are constant and progression, like anything in life, right? There's a healthy growth trajectory. And what I've seen, and it doesn't mean that there aren't defining moments. I think there are defining moments. I think we can go back, and I want to take us back to one of your defining moments. But rarely are these defining moments an end unto themselves. They're an opening, which is what I've seen you go through many of these openings on your journey. And so I'd like to take us back to, at least as I've experienced it and I've incorporated into my book, one of your defining moments. All right.
All right. I don't know where you're going with this, but okay, let's go.
So when we started working together, I did what I often do. I rarely do this with women, by the way, because there are certain things that are much more male oriented or challenging. And here's one of them. I don't know. There's a lot of reasons why this might be, but men, where I met you, first of all, I meet men in the afternoon of life. You know, Carl Jung's famous statement: there's morning and there's afternoon. There's actually evening, but somewhere around 40. It's not a hard and fast rule, he says, but 40-ish. And we have even this, like, and you go to your Hallmark store and you look at the cards, there's a 40-year-old almost section, right? We've intuited this as a culture, that something begins to shift where the game starts changing. Now, just because you're north of 40 doesn't mean you're actually in the afternoon. Sometimes we go kicking and screaming. Sometimes we go sleepwalking. Sometimes we die at 90, still in the morning of life. So it's a mindset. It's what you're describing as reaction response, morning and afternoon. Well, when I work with guys, invariably they're on the other side, at least physiologically, biologically, of 40. So they're in their 40s, which is when, you were in there when we met, to start our work together. And I always send a guy to the mirror to start at the beginning. I want to always gauge where he's at in his life with what I call these mirror moments. I call it the guy in the glass. Do you recall that experience?
Yeah, I remember you telling me about it, and I couldn't do it. I could look around my face and my body, but I had a hard time looking at my eyes, like really truly looking at myself.
And so I sent you to the mirror as our starting point in some ways, because like when your kids, your girls were younger, maybe you were like me, you marked their height on the doorpost, or you've certainly seen it on TV or whatever. And why do we do that? Because we need a measuring stick. They think it's fun, and I think it's interesting, because when you're so close to them, you just can't see the growth, and you almost need that objective sort of measurement. And to me, that's what the mirror moment, the guy in the glass moment is. Because what I've seen invariably, especially with the guys I'm working with, there's some piece of them that they can't fully look at their eyes in the mirror. And I don't just mean like, fixing the hair that I used to have. I mean, like an uncomfortably long, lingering stare, staring into the depths of that man's eyes. That's the starting point.
That was hard from what I recall, because I don't think I liked what I saw, because there were too many stories. I feel like there were too many lies. I was hiding behind certain things, and it just didn't feel right, didn't feel comfortable. And now I think during this journey, it's allowed me to be able to learn to like and love myself, because of being able to, one, accept who I am. And I think that was a big thing, because I'm a very sensitive person. I think for a long time of my life, I tried to, I was shamed by that, I feel like. And it may have been me doing it to myself, but I just felt like I couldn't show that for some reason or another. But I think I've really just owned that and embraced it. And that's helped. And then also just trying to be honest with myself, and honest with my wife. I mean, because that's really where it starts. and just trying to create this clarity to where I and I have to, and initially during this journey, like I was really hard on myself because I didn't like seeing what I had seen in the past because I had made so many mistakes and I did hide behind lies um and so just acknowledging that that was the past, that's not who I am today, um and really just embracing it. And
So here's a random question. I already know the answer, but how many times have you been to a confessional?
zero.
Why is that, Shafman?
Because I'm Jewish.
There you go. So, however, that's not true because the work that we do, and I do this work on my own with my guy that I go to, by the way, I also do this in our conversations. I'm not a traditional therapist, and then I say, lay on the couch and tell me about your mother, and you don't know nothing of me by the end. Like I'm in it, in the mess, in the muck with you, and I think I'm pretty forthcoming in that. It's confessional. That's what we do. That's all we do. When I meet guys
Mm,
and they're still in the morning of life, even if they shouldn't be, they should be in the afternoon, but they're holding on to the morning. It starts with bullshit, right?
hmm.
It starts with them bullshitting me from something as benign as, hey, how you doing? Oh, I'm fine. Then why the hell are we on this call? Because you don't need me, you're fine. But the truth is I know the truth. But if you say I'm fine for long enough, and I know you're not shy about how you used to numb your I'm not fine, but I'm going to pretend I'm fine, then you start believing your own bullshit. And to me, I don't
Mm,
think there's a hell where we go and there's a devil and the pitchfork and all that stuff. I think there is a hell, though. It's here. And to me, hell is when a man believes his own bullshit.
mm,
Lies, because I say to the guys all the time, and that's just a benign one. I'll get into these things where guys will tell me 5, 10 months in, I never told you, but I'm cheating on my wife. Like you're withholding that truth, not from me. I don't care. I mean, it's not my journey. You're withholding it from yourself. You're lying to yourself. And if you lie to yourself, there's no way out, right?
mhm,
Until you tell the truth. And so that's that mirror moment that almost every guy I know is withholding the truth of something to himself. And he
mhm.
can't meet his eyes in the mirror, not completely, not at first.
Yeah, I mean that's how I lived almost 50 years of my life, 48 years of my life, and um, it's it's really about accepting yourself and who you are, and the fact that again, you got to give yourself grace because you're going to screw up, you're going to make mistakes. But here's the difference, okay? When you make a mistake, you own it. You own
Right.
it. And if you don't own it, then you're in the morning of life, right? And then you're lying, you're trying to cover stuff up, you're defending yourself, your ego's in the way, you're reacting, all of that stuff. Where if you're truthful and honest with yourself, okay, I see what I did. I see what I did wrong, and I apologize.
It's
I
so important.
sincerely
That's a really great insight. That in some ways, the morning of life and the afternoon of life are not necessarily different in quantity. You might still be doing the same things. It's difference in quality that when you fuck up in the morning of life, your initial move is it's out there. And in the afternoon of life consciousness, it's I take responsibility, right?
yeah,
That's the
100%.
difference. Because the
And
guys
it's
that I work with,
you're in the arena, right?
you're in the arena.
You're in the arena.
We're gonna come back to that one in another time. But
Okay.
you're in the mess. You're in the
Yeah.
arena. You're making mistakes. The difference being that when you go back to the mirror, right? If you can take responsibility for it, you're right. It's compassion. It's as I always say to guys, it's not to excuse the infidelity, the bad choice, whatever you fill in the blank for that particular guy in that particular situation. It's not to excuse it. It's to explain it, right?
Mm.
And if you can explain it, I can name it. If I can name it, I can own it. I can take responsibility. But if I don't even name it or don't take responsibility, how am I supposed to move through this?
Mm-hmm.
And so
Yeah.
that
I mean, I
started.
think that's the difference maker, is owning it. Because if you don't own it and you try to deviate from the truth and maybe own some of the truth and not all of the truth, there's a lie still there. You're still trying to remember. It's so hard to remember all your lies. It's very easy to remember your truth.
And lying isn't always like, well, let me say lies of commission, of saying things that aren't true.
I always
It's
say.
lies of omission,
Mm.
of leaving things out.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
And so leaving out the whole story, and not just to your spouse or to your friends or whatever, to yourself. And then
Mm-hmm.
50 years of leaving that out, it's hard to hold your gaze. Right. Like you raise kids, when they're lying, they don't look you in the eyes and see in your soul and you see in theirs. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's never once happened to me. I can see it. There's a twitch, there's a looking away.
Mm-hmm.
We used to know a guy who would never look, hold my gaze, and I never fully trusted him, because if you can't look at me in the eyes, there's
Mm-hmm.
something being withheld.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. I think that's a very important trait to have. Like, be able to look somebody in the eyes and to be truthful.
But it's a muscle. It's a quality that you
It
have
is
to have to
it's
strength.
it's a muscle. It takes practice.
Right.
Like I said, it's not like all of a sudden I had this like moment where it was just turn the light switch on and it was like all of a sudden I was, it is a journey, and every morning, I have to start my day a certain way in order to, empty my cup, so I am able to respond and not react. Like, it's a practice, it's a journey. It takes time. Takes I feel like it takes courage. It takes honesty, clarity, empathy, listening skills. There's a lot there.
And today's sort of tool focus foundation for me is mirror moments, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not all or nothing. It's not, I can't hold my gaze, or I can sit there and stare at myself, for hours in the mirror, right? And it's checking in periodically when you go to the mirror, whether you're at a restaurant, just excusing yourself for a second, whether you're at work, whether you're at home. Can you start to bring this ritual into your life of just checking in, just checking in?
I know I've told you this, but at some point in time, I feel like I don't know if I'm going to write a book or I'm going to do something, but I feel like if I did, the cover of the book would be me looking in the mirror and it shattered. The mirror was shattered because that's where it started. Like, it was a shattered mirror and I couldn't see myself. I didn't want to see myself. I avoided that because I knew I wasn't being honest with myself in so many ways.
So I'm going to borrow that for the cover of my book. So you will have your book, and
Fair enough.
it'll be you. But see, here's the morning of life difference: is that the morning of life, we say the mirror is ruined, it's broken, it's less than. So buy a new fucking mirror, right?
Yes. But that doesn't work. Yeah. So
And
you're going to end up shattering it if that's all you rely on is buying a new mirror.
I don't trust the
Reboot.
guy. I don't trust
Reboot.
the guy without a shattered mirror. I don't work with guys without a shattered mirror. I don't trust them. It's
They're hiding
BS.
something because there's no one's out there that's just
If
making no mistakes and owning
these
like
these
perfect.
guys that are pretending, and this, look, maybe in the morning of life, because you just haven't ventured long enough, far enough, you haven't lost, you haven't failed, you get to a certain point, and that's why that midlife transition is so important. There's no way out of it. If you aren't showing a shattered mirror at that point, you're just shopping at Walmart, replacing it with new mirrors on a daily basis. Right. And so the shattered mirror, and this is my last book, Spark Seekers, where it's built on the idea that there's nothing more whole than a broken heart. Right? That your brokenness is what makes you so whole. If you can hold that and look in the mirror and go back to that shattered mirror and start to piece it back together again. I've seen you do that. Would you be willing to talk about, some of the shattering in that?
Yeah. I'll talk about whatever you want.
So I think this will resonate with a lot of guys listening, but I know one of your shatterings of choice was alcohol.
Yeah, I mean that's easy for me to talk about. I think that for a lot of my life, I was numbing pain, and it wasn't really necessarily pain. It was just numbing the feeling of not probably being comfortable with who I am. I think that's probably the root of where it came from, is not knowing who I was, and alcohol helped with being comfortable. And so did gambling. And so I had those two vices for a long time. It just, I just woke up one day, and it was after a really long night of drinking. And I realized, like, this is not the journey I want to be on anymore. I ended up just quitting, and it wasn't hard. So I don't feel like I necessarily had a drinking problem as much as I had a numbing problem. I had and I didn't want to deal. I didn't want to see myself in the mirror, I guess, is what it comes down to. I didn't like myself then.
Yeah. And, the numbing is the equivalent of swapping out mirrors. Every time you drink, it's like, I'm not going to look in that shattered mirror. I'm just going to get a new mirror. So it could be shopping. It could be gambling. It could be drinking. It could be sex, online porn, whatever it is.
It's a vice. It's something that takes you away from reality.
And that's, you said it, it's a numbing. So I don't feel the sting of going to the bathroom, looking in the mirror and not being able to meet my gaze for a moment, until the next day, until the hangover, until it wears off. And then the mirror is even harder to look at. That's why it's the pathway to hell, because it's just this downward spiral where you're getting farther and farther from the eyes of the Scott Shafman looking back at you in the mirror. So you stopped numbing, and it wasn't easy. It was essential, right? So you could return back to that guy in the mirror.
Yeah. And when you say return, I mean, it was probably, I think we are all born and we're all innocent and we all, happy, and until things start to change. And I just remember, I changed. And I've talked to you about this image in my head, and of me being, I don't know, maybe I was 3 or 4 years old and in my overalls, and I was clean and I was cute, and my hair was all neat and everything. And that was me being that perfect child. Right. And I think, things start to change when, and especially today with this social media, and not that I really want to go down this path at all, but I just think there's just so many different pieces of pressure that are on us, that are pulling us away from fitting, from belonging. Okay. And belonging is being your true self in belonging somewhere, where fitting in is actually not being your true self, being somebody, like being more of a chameleon to fit in with a group. And I feel like for so long, I just tried to fit in.
Well, it's pronounced, or more pronounced by social media, but this is the Garden of Eden thousands of years ago, where Adam and Eve stand naked and feel no shame. And then things start to come undone in the garden. This is just a mythical tale of what we're dealing with today and every generation. And what came in between the two of them? What came in between of Adam being able to look into his mirror of Eve and hold the gaze of their eyes and feel no shame? The snake. And the snake in Hebrew, nachash, means doubt, right?
Mm.
So doubt starts creeping in the garden. And then the lies, and we could do a whole study on this, but then the lies, you can just watch their communication break down, and withholding the truth or embellishing the truth or half truths or lies start getting in the way, and it just starts getting worse and worse and worse. And then they have shame, right? So this is an ancient problem, but it's a problem. We got to stand guard against that creeping of and this is a big word I know for you, shame. Talk to me about that word.
It is a big word because I feel like I carried that burden for so long. I don't feel it anymore. I don't feel that shame anymore. But for so long I had this shame because I was numbing myself, doing stuff to not really to see myself in the mirror and come back to this and really own who my true self is. But I didn't know who I was at that point in time either. So I wasn't aware, I wasn't conscious, I wasn't awakened. But I think, it just took a moment in my life where I snapped. I couldn't do it anymore. And that happened 4 years ago.
But I would argue you did know at the response at the conscious level, and that's where that shame starts creeping in. Because if you truly don't know, because I knew you back in the day in our 20s, that wasn't really shame. It was, we were playing out the morning of life the way kids are supposed to play out the morning of life.
Mm-hmm.
Then you cross a threshold, those 20s, those 30s, those 40s, where it's like, I can't play that game anymore. And I know some level, he inside of me is calling me saying, Scott, what are we doing?
Mm-hmm.
Right? You're more than this. You
Mm-hmm.
signed up for more than. That's where that shame that starts creeping in.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why you can't hold the gaze, because there's something more. There's a better man underneath the flesh suit than is showing up in Amy's life, in the girl's life, in his professional life, in his whatever. And I've watched that progression for you.
And with that being said, now that I am more aware of who I am and what I want in life, I now I desire. I crave connection, and I crave meaning, and I crave purpose, and almost to the point where I struggle with having people around me that I feel that's where my struggle is right now, is finding my tribe that are in this space where they desire this meaning and this purpose and because once you are in that space, you only want more.
Yeah, and it's not that everybody has to have perfect mirrors to be in that space. It's that I need to be around, and I do too. That's why we're having this conversation and we're starting a men's movement. I'll tell you about it. I want to be around other guys who are doing their mirror work. I don't care what their broken mirror is. I just want to be around guys who are going to the mirror and saying, I'm having a hard time looking at the guy in the glass in the mirror, but I'm working on it.
It's raw. It's vulnerability. And that's hard for men.
It is. It's so hard. It's also hard because we still have these morning of life rules where my mirror shouldn't be broken. I'm bad. No, your mirror is going to get broken. The question is, do you continue to find yourself in it and work on it and own it? You said, take responsibility for it. And when you do, you get to a different place. I want to share, I've shared this with you many times, but this is part of my thesis, my personal journey, your journey, the men's journey, which again we'll talk about in a second. But I've shared with you many times. Maybe I'll just read it. The Guy in the Glass. This was written in 1934. And this was my first mirror moment because my grandfather, Grandpa Jack, I don't know, I was 18, 19. I was, pretty much a schmuck. And he must have seen that in me. And he gave me this poem. And this poem has just like gnawed at me for over 30 years now at this point. And it's by Dale Wimbrow. It was written in 1934. So the language is a little archaic, but so powerful. The Guy in the Glass. When you get what you want in your struggle for self, and the world makes you king for a day, then go to the mirror and look at yourself and see what that guy has to say. For it isn't your father or mother or wife whose judgment upon you must pass. The fellow whose verdict counts most in your life is the guy staring back from the glass. He's the feller to please, never mind all the rest, for he's with you clear up to the end. And you've passed your most dangerous, difficult test if the guy in the glass is your friend. You may be like Jack Horner and chisel a plum, I can come back to that, and think you're a wonderful guy. But the man in the glass says you're only a bum if you can't look him straight in the eye. You can fool the whole world down the pathway of years and get pats on the back as you pass, but your final reward will be heartache and tears if you've cheated the guy in the glass. What does that poem do for you, Scott?
It's beautiful. It's so true, and the ending is sad because it's the people that never really have been awakened and didn't live the afternoon of life and didn't really own their truth, and they've hid behind lies, and they've admitted stuff throughout their life that last sentence is going to resonate for those people that have not been able to truly awaken. And that's, I hope everybody can have a moment to where things shift for them without that moment being a cause of destruction in their lives, because unfortunately that's probably common, for there to be a death, a divorce, something that has just shaken somebody to the core, that has made them really question what they should be doing, and really maybe try to start to shift, because life is too short. And you want to, maybe want to do more and make a difference and be a better role model and be a better person to your friends and family and obviously to yourself.
I think that there's no way around it. I really don't work with men, as I mentioned before, who haven't had the shattering. In Hebrew, it's called mashber. This means crisis, but it's also actually the ancient word for birth stool. And crisis and birth, right, have a tremendous amount bound up. Like, it's the most dangerous moment of a woman's life up to that point, giving birth. And so there's potential loss or death, but there's also potential for life. And I do think the men listening to this, right, every one of them's got a shattered mirror. Whether or not they're ready to look into it, whether or not they can hold the gaze, whether or not they can admit it, that's up to them. But you're right. Your final reward will be heartache and tears if you've cheated the guy in the glass. That's tragic. Not the shattered mirror is not tragic. That's tragic.
I think that's something that maybe I feared for a lot of my life, but I never was able to put it in words like that. But I think that was a whisper. It was a whisper for a lot of my life. And I knew I was capable of doing more. I knew I was capable of being the soft, sensitive person that I truly am. I just couldn't. I couldn't do it for one reason or another. I couldn't be all in, and now I'm all in.
So we'll wrap up here in a second. But has it hurt your business by being vulnerable?
I don't think so. And I feel as though, if anything, I'm in this period of creating and I've talked to you about this. I think I'm at a place in my life and where I am in my career of just being open. And when I say that, I want to create abundance, and I want to be able to be in a place to where I can impact other people in a way that is meaningful and purposeful for me. So during this journey, I've defined my true core values, which I have embraced in my business and in my personal life, and try to live by them on a daily day. And commitment, gratitude, and integrity. Those are the three key ingredients to making me whole. And that's what I try to do on a daily basis, whether I'm at work, whether I'm with my family, friends, clients. I try to come from that place. So I don't think I don't think it's hurt my business. I think over time it's only going to help.
And that's, I asked that for obvious reasons, because a lot of the guys I talk to they believe that this can become a distraction. They're diverting their energies away from, the time when they're supposed to be building and thriving and all that. Or, they can't do that. I'm a lawyer, I'm a banker, I'm whatever it is. And they have this narrative, this story. And I refer them back to your previous podcasts with me on the open floor plan.
Mm-hmm.
Just like in the housing market now, you go into a house and the houses that really sell have an open floor plan, not a 1980s walled off floor plan. And you came up with that one, but that's our analogy for true success. That man is a master in all his domains. Well, there's just one domain, which is mastering Scott, not work Scott and husband Scott and dad Scott and friend Scott and son Scott.
Mm-hmm.
One Scott, right?
Yeah.
One Scott, holistic.
I think that's the best place. That's the best way to live a life,
And that's
is having an open floor plan and being true to yourself. And doesn't matter what room you enter.
And that's what allows you now to go to the mirror and like what that man has to say, right? Hold his gaze. And so any of the guys listening, you're not alone if you go to the mirror and you can't hold the gaze. There's only one way through it, and that's through it. That's to do the work. That's the mirror work that we're all here to do. And so that's what Scott and I do. We're going to be evolving this, expanding this. I'm running a group here, real-time physical presence in Denver, but I'm going to be starting a virtual group based on the mirror, based on Scott Shafman's mirror moment and all of our mirror moments, so that we can learn how to really go back to that mirror and like what that guy has to say. And the name of it, I've never dropped this publicly, but the name of it is Man Up Rising. Man Up Rising. It's not about manning up. It's about men rising up in the afternoon of life, right? And so it's man uprising because it's an uprising. It needs to be an uprising, a rebellion of sorts against all the bullshit that we've been taught, that we're told, that our contemporaries are still doing, right? Morning of life rules and goals, and not enough if you want to be a true man in the afternoon of life. And so we got to rise up, and that's the work that you've done. And I just want to thank you for being an example of what's possible to me and to all these other men listening.
Wow, that's great. And obviously I want to thank you for, just being there for me on my journey and really being that guiding light, because I could not have done this work without you and your words of wisdom and guidance and inspiration, and always challenging me has helped me get to the place where I am today. So thank you.
Well, you will be our first official men's mentor in this group. We're going to have a mentor, and somebody who's been around the block with me with these ideas, whatever. And we're going to be forming this group where we're going to be inviting other men into it virtually. Wherever you are, you can participate. So stay tuned. That'll be in hopefully 2024, earlier rather than later. So stay tuned. We are going to take your example, scale it to the world, and God willing, you'll have your own book cover here pretty soon.
That'd be amazing.
All right, buddy.
All right. It was great.
And
All right,
thanks for listening, everybody. Jump over to defiantspirit.org where you can learn more. Until then, defy your number and live your spirit.
All right. See ya.